Besides the National Guard nonsense in Oregon, there wasn't that much news this weekend, really. So better than news, we have Donald Trump Jr., certified crypto scammer, whining uncontrollably at a Valuetainment event. He's speaking in front of this big crowd, supposing that, actually correctly, his father should be in jail if he lost the election. He says a bunch of other crazy stuff. Just listen to this clip.
They impeached my father twice over absolutely nothing. They made up Russiagate, right? I mean, they made up the dirty dossier where they claimed that he did unthinkably disgusting and lewd things, right? And that was all paid for by Hillary Clinton. They raided our home. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They raided Melania's room. They raided Barron's room. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history for doing absolutely nothing wrong, for being an honest, good person, right? Unlike Hunter Biden, by the way, who's finger painting all day long and selling it to Chinese nationals. I mean, they weaponized every DA and every AG, 91 felony indictments, right? I mean, Maine pulled him off the ballot. Colorado pulled him off the ballot. We were deplatformed. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, they ripped us off like we were dogs. They left Boko Haram. They left the Ayatollah. They left Al-Qaeda on there, but they ripped the 45th president off. Guys, they tried to bankrupt us. They tried to take the name off of Trump Tower and every building that we have around New York State and around the globe. They wanted us done. They deplatformed us. They debanked us. They did everything they could to possibly destroy us. And when none of that worked, they tried to kill him. They tried to kill him first in Butler, Pennsylvania. Then they tried to kill him again at a golf course. They put our family and they put this country under siege, right? And so it is like the greatest vindication. I mean, I was sitting there. I sat next to my father in those disgusting courtrooms in New York City every single day as they read, and we've overturned every one of the cases. We've won every single one of these cases. And I always tell the story. We hop in a car. So it was that horrible Merchan trial. The daughter works for the Democratic Party, right? 34 felony convictions were read out. He stands up, turns around, shakes my hand. We hop in the car. We're leaving the courthouse. He goes, "Honey, I don't know how right now, but we're going to win this thing." And when he said win it, he meant win the White House. He meant win the entire trial. And I said, it's either the White House or jail, because that's how bad it was at the time. Meaning, you either win the entire thing, or that they're going to throw you in jail for the. You see the stock market today. You see everything that's happening. You see energy prices falling, the biggest tax breaks in the history of the country, peace in the Middle East.
Peace in the Middle East, as the biggest conflict in the Middle East is farther away from being solved as it has ever been, probably in history. So, way to end on that. But the main point, yes, Donald Trump should be in jail. Let me explain why. And he's right. He's right. And he didn't win any of those trials, by the way. The civil litigation against Donald Trump essentially inflating the value of Mar-a-Lago by up to 30 times, right? 30 times. Inflating the value and square footage of Trump Tower apartments by 3 times, right? He's inflating the square footage there, making up land that does not exist, right? That trial, only the penalty was overturned, because the penalty was kind of absurd, but they did not overturn that he committed fraud. He committed massive fraud, right? They couldn't, it wasn't criminal fraud because they couldn't prove intent, because you need a smoking gun for that, but it was civil fraud, more likely than not that he was ordering the stuff on a systemic basis. But if I think Donald Trump should be in jail, why is he not? And there's multiple answers to that. Number one is the Supreme Court case, Trump versus the United States, right? Gave him immunity for almost everything he did on January 6th, because never have we prosecuted a president to this extent. So the Supreme Court basically made up these absurd statutes to follow of what a president is invincible for. Even Amy Coney Barrett, partially defended, she thought it was absurd, part of the ruling, that you cannot use a president's private actions as evidence to litigate crimes they did in office. She's like, that's the craziest thing I've ever read. And of course it was crazy beyond that. Then you got Aileen Cannon, judge in Florida, overturned. Well, she just dismissed the whole documents case, right? She dismissed it on the grounds that special counsels are illegal, that the whole institution of special counsel is unconstitutional. And Aileen Cannon is a crazy person. She always gets overturned by the trial judges. She did in 2023, and she would have if Donald Trump did not win the election, and Donald Trump would be facing the penalty for ordering his Mar-a-Lago staff to delete security footage and hide boxes so that he could lie to his lawyers, who were then going to send a letter to National Archives or the DOJ and defraud them. So, great. All that after a year of lying to National Archives. So, people saying that the raid was not justified, that's absurd. By the way, Don Jr., in January 6th, he's like, oh, he got impeached for doing nothing. Don Jr. was one of the people who communicated with Mark Meadows, begging his father to call off the riots. He knew he had the power to do it. He was begging him to do it. Like, his whole family was, his whole staff was, right? These people are knowing liars, right? We have all the greatest hits, the dirty dossier. That's just opposition research, if you didn't know. The Hillary Clinton campaign had access to the dossier, but they had the integrity to not release it to the public until essentially the end of the campaign ended, and BuzzFeed released it after Trump won that election. They could have released it. It was under their domain. They paid for it, right? They didn't pay for that text to be written explicitly. The informant wrote the text. Like, we have no evidence that Hillary Clinton even really knew about it. Nevertheless, commanded that it have certain contents in it. Donald Trump Jr., speaking of opposition research, we have Donald Trump Jr. At the infamous Trump Tower meeting inviting illegal opposition research from Russia. This should be common knowledge, right? Way more immoral than the dossier, which was not even immoral. It was simply an informant saying the extent of his knowledge, and we should have taken it with a grain of salt, and the FBI unfortunately did not. And that's the extent of the issue with the Russia stuff. Everything else is totally valid. But Donald Trump accepted a meeting set up by Rob Goldstone, marketed as Russian, highly connected Russian nationals, giving dirt on Hillary Clinton. And he said, if that's what the meeting's about, then I'm all for it. And he confirms this stuff in his testimonies. Like, he's subpoenaed, and he actually told some truthful information in his testimonies. So, you know, part of me thinks he's just a knowing liar, right? But yeah, he accepted that opposition research from a foreign entity. So his dad should be in jail for 4 different reasons: Mueller obstruction, the 2019, essentially bribing Ukraine to give him a political advantage against his opponent, right? And January 6th, of course, and then the documents case. So I can't help but agree with him here. He's totally right. But then they tried to kill him. I guess they tried to kill him. Like, I mean, was it Iran? Was it the Democrats? Was it some like 20-year-old who is politically ambiguous? I guess we'll never know. But wait, aren't I in charge? Is my family in charge of the DOJ? And can't we find all that stuff out? Oh, maybe that's the case, right? Another thing, Al Qaeda and Boko Haram do not have Twitter accounts. That's just absurd. Trump was debanked not because of his political views. They should have debanked him because of his political views, but he was debanked because Wells Fargo wanted to diversify. If you know what a bank is, you know that deposits are liabilities. They don't want super concentrated liability because if Donald Trump withdraws all his funds, that has a risk to like Wells Fargo. So that's that one. But after January 6th, Donald Trump should have been off every social media platform. Did you know? I like to mention little crystals of Trump knowledge. It should be common knowledge that Donald Trump was the first president since Reconstruction to not attend his successor's inauguration. Can you wrap your head around that? Do Trump voters even know that? How absurd that is? Joe Biden attended the inauguration of his successor, who was literally an insurrectionist. Right? Joe Biden did that. And arguably, none of the presidents should have showed up to Donald Trump's inauguration in 2024 because he should not have been on the ballot. Colorado and Maine were absolutely correct. The Supreme Court just blocked their jurisdiction because the statute was, pretty clear that they couldn't do that, right? The Supreme Court didn't say Trump didn't do an insurrection. It was a ruling, a new precedent based on their interpretation of the constitutional amendment that was used by those states. I forget its exact what number amendment it was, to block him from the ballot. But if the Supreme Court did rule on that, and they were really impartial, they would also come to the conclusion that he shouldn't have been on any ballots, not because of necessarily the stuff he did on January 6th, but because of all the stuff he did before January 6th. That's where all the Jack Smith indictments come from. It's not necessarily his tweets on January 6th, although that's the easiest thing to learn about when you first encounter like January 6th as like a event to be studied. Right, all the really nefarious stuff is January 1st through January 5th, and then December of all of 2020, and how he recycled his DOJ, tried to pressure people to, send out knowingly false information, try to get Mike Pence to lie, called Mike Pence, too honest. There's just so much there that people have forgotten about that I wish I could talk about, but it's irrelevant, I guess. We elected an insurrectionist. Congrats, guys.